We are here in council chambers. So I'll call this meeting to order. Let's go around and start off with some roll call. Joe?
Joe Eichstead, City Engineer.
Paul Vollert, Public Works Superintendent.
Ryan Austin, District 1 Alderperson and Chairperson in Public Works.
Madeline Palmquist, District 8 Alderperson and Vice Chair for Public Works.
Dennis Pollock, 6th Ward Alderman.
Jeff Penscover, Alderman, District 4.
Dean Veneman, Alderman, District 2, and Council President.
Matt Zacher, Mayor.
Okay, that's everyone. So we'll move on to item 2, review the Engineering and Street Department monthly activity report. Paul, go ahead and kick us off.
All right, thank you. The report is attached. You can see garbage continues to be fluctuating back and forth a little bit, but relatively consistent. Over the last month, we were able to get SD Ellenbecker in to complete the curb and gutter and sidewalk over on Apricot Street. Once that was completed, we finished doing the restoration and finish graded and had American Asphalt come in the last May 30th. So that project is complete then. Obviously waiting on the grass to take and things like that, but for the most part, everything is done. Lincoln Street continues to move along nicely. You have the different amount of footage that was installed over the last month. We've completed all the underground work north of Chestnut Street, so the underground work from Chestnut to East Grand Avenue is completed. Monday and part of Tuesday, we just have to do the subgrading and the gravel base of the roadway and the bike trails and things like that. We have put Summers Construction on notice to come in and do the curb and gutter and also all the flat work on the first phase that we completed. So starting probably Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, we'll start removal south of Chestnut Street. So we'll be working from Chestnut to the west leg of Dewey Street that goes to the hospital. That intersection will remain open until we get all the work north of that completed. So some more inconvenience there. As far as street maintenance goes in the month of May, we had a pretty substantial, or the engineering department had a pretty substantial project with curb and gutter and sidewalk maintenance work going on up by the old Mary Pitch School and Waterworks and Lighting, and then also down by SS Peter and Paul. So we were involved with that work as well, doing the restoration work and the asphalt patches after the curb and gutter was completed. Due to the rain and some other constraints with the Wood County Highway Department where we get our asphalt from to do our own patchwork, we don't have all of that work put back together yet, but a good portion of it is completed. The restoration work is all completed. It's just the asphalt patches that are done. We also completed asphalt patches from water main breaks and sanitary repairs that we did over the winter months. So some of those larger patches that you've been driving over for gravel for the last 4 or 5 months should be gone for the most part now. As well as completing the second brush pickup due to the windstorms that we got late in the month, or actually around our last council meeting and things like that. We did add an additional week of brush collection for this week because we had a fair amount of limbs that came down. Luckily, we weren't completed with it with the wind that we got yesterday and the day before, so we kind of have everything relatively clean, but all of that work is completed this week. And then also we did our yard waste collection in the beginning of the month of May with that as well. As far as our sign shop goes, due to the warmer temperatures, we started doing painting of the crosswalks and things like that on our arterial streets and parking stalls. So we've started our painting season already. We also installed the Memorial Walk along Grand Avenue for the veterans prior to Memorial Day holiday, and changed the different banners as to what they're needed for our normal rotation there. Our shop just continues to stay pretty steady with routine maintenance this time of the year. Nothing major has really happened, except for just a few hydraulic cylinder replacement, things like that. So with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul on the street department report? Jeff?
I've got a comment. I really like the job he did on Apricot Street. I drove by there the other day and it looks impressive. Turned out very good.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, Joe.
All right, thank you. For the engineering department for the month of May, Digger's Hotline locates remain high this month, as we expect, and they'll continue that way through the rest of the construction season. We did have some signal complaints come through, left turn arrows at the expressway in Lincoln Street. We've got that malfunction, or equipment that malfunctioned on order, and that's, as soon as we get that in, we'll get that repaired. In addition, a pedestrian button at the 10th Avenue and West Grand Avenue pedestrian crossing failed, and that was repaired in the month of May. And then we also had a video detection processor fail. Parts are on order for that as well. For construction activities, Mr. Penscover mentioned the Apricot Street project. Curb, sidewalk, and asphalt went down this month. The street is now open, so it had been closed for the winter season, but traffic is now able to use that street. In addition, we had some various maintenance activities or pavement maintenance activities that required some design for alley paving, pavement grades for a larger pavement patch on 3rd Street between Franklin Street and Apricot Street, and then storm sewer design as part of a pavement maintenance project that we put information together for. In addition, the Harrison Street, 9th Avenue to 7th Avenue North survey has started. That's a 2025 project. In addition, we have design continuing for 14th Avenue, McKinley Street, and East Jackson Street as well. Regarding the rail notification project, the predictive mobility project, we did receive information this month that project funding has been authorized for that project. So the paperwork and such can resume at this point. So we'll get that, the environmental and procurement documentation to the DOT and go from there. In regards to the 1 Mile Creek project, we just finalized the final review of the plan for the application submission to the DNR. So that permit issuance, we believe, is to be very, very near. Probably hope to see that in the month of June. We did also hire a seasonal engineering technician, Jared Coates. He began working for the city on June 3rd for the next 6 months or so. And then in regards to the 32nd Street rail crossing with the Office of Commissioner Railroads, just a quick update on that. I did speak with the DOT railroad coordinators in both the north central and eastern regions. And in collaboration with them, both of them believe that we may be able to submit a concept drawing to OCR that would include just pavement marking and signage that would hopefully satisfy the needs that OCR has notified the city of. And so we'll be putting that together the month of June and getting it back to the Office of Commissioner Railroads for their review. And that concludes our monthly report. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions or comments for Joe on the engineering report? I guess I would just say on the predictive mobility implementation, I think, maybe a little bit of public notice once that system is actually installed, maybe a press release or something alerting residents to that change and kind of what to expect. I don't know if that's been thought about, but I think that would be something worth talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think it'll be critical for the success of that project, being that it's largely a phone application that would be, it's going to be dependent upon the use of the citizens of the city.
All right, nothing further there. We'll move to item 3, review and discuss the establishment of railroad quiet zones. Go ahead, Joe.
So I brought this back this month, did go back and run through all the calculations again, update everything to make sure that, the national significant risk threshold is current, the quiet zone risk index is current, and that we included all of the crossings in the city. So I have in the packet, I have a table that summarizes, each of the crossings within the corporate limits. There's 3 different crossing subdivisions. The Valley Sub, that's the red subdivision of crossings. The Whitehall Sub in green, and then the East Side subdivision in blue. And then following that was the quiet zone risk index calculation for each of those quiet zones. Assuming that all of the crossings in each of those subdivisions would be the quiet zone that we would establish. Went through and calculated the risk index for each of those, and then provided the, estimated cost. Is a very high level cost estimate at this point, but it does look at the lights and gates for each of the crossings and has a estimated cost of $250,000 for each of the upgrades that are needed at those crossings. I did confirm with CN over the course of the last few weeks that with a quiet zone and existing equipment versus upgrading to either, even if we have a crossing that has lights but no gates, having something that's quiet zone eligible, meaning lights and gates and other safety enhancements, such as constant warning time devices and other things that I'm not fully aware of, that in most cases, the lights and gates at all the crossings would need to be upgraded. And so that's why we've got such a large round number in there for each of the lights and gates at $250,000 for each crossing. So as you can see, the Valley Sub is totaled at roughly 2.9 million for a quiet zone establishment at all of those crossings. The Whitehall Sub, 5.4 million. And then, and the reason that one is so much more expensive is those crossings, a lot of them don't have, they don't have any gates at them at all. Lastly is the East Side at 2.7 million. So hopefully I kind of summarized it in a way that, kind of creates a full picture of the entire city and all of the crossings and potential costs at this time. Obviously, it could be more, maybe less. I think the numbers that are in there are largely conservative.
Thank you, Joe. Questions? Madeline?
So just to clarify, Joe, the cost that's on the quiet zone tables, for example, the Gaynor Avenue in the Valley Sub, that 32222 is to install the gates, the constant warning devices, and the power out indicators?
Yep, as well as the risk reduction infrastructure like the quick curb that's identified in there. That's a relatively low-cost item, but on an individual basis, these crossings were, do we need lights and gates? How many crossings do we have? It's a rough estimate. I took the totals, the same cost estimates that Patrick Engineering had put together, and just made sure that the risk reduction infrastructure that would be deployed would still result in a quiet zone risk index that was lower than the nationwide significant risk index, and then that total cost divided by the number of crossings. That's why they're all, the same $322,000 within that subdivision.
Okay, so currently, none of our crossings meet the minimum required by the railroad crossings. That says that we just need the flashing lights, the constant warning time indicators were reasonably practicable, and power out indicators.
Yeah, none of them have all of the equipment in place at
Okay.
this time. Had they had everything in place, it would just be the paperwork to submit the review and then establishment of the quiet zone.
And the cost we're looking at now is based on your current cost to install the minimum required, not based on the previous feasibility report that had all of the additional risk reductions. I think the rules were different when that report was done, and we needed to have like the quick curb or the divided or extra gates, and that increased the cost. I just want to make sure we're looking at the right.
So that previous report that was done was in 2022, and based on rerunning the numbers, the additional risk reduction infrastructure, the quick curb or some similar sort of product is still required at 3 of the crossings in the valley sub. None of the other crossings, or either in that subdivision or the other subdivisions, require any other risk reduction. They just need to have the upgraded lights and gates. And like I said before, those quick curbs or similar types of devices are relatively cheap compared to the lights and gates. That's really the big cost, is the lights and gates, as it adds up very quickly at $250,000 apiece.
And we have no other option but to use CN to get those lights and gates.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I got off the phone with him today, and he didn't give exact numbers, but, I wanted to see if $250,000 was reasonable, and he said, well, based on the size of the crossing, and there's variables to those costs, but he said everything that's coming out right now is $400,000 to $500,000, and that's, maybe they're bigger crossings than some of the ones that we have, but otherwise that was the latest information that he could provide.
Thank you.
Anyone else? What about grant options, Joe? Anything to speak to there? I mean, it's a significant cost. If it's somewhere we could try to knock out one at a time or something, if there was, enough grant dollars to pursue, thoughts there?
I know the report from 2022 from Patrick Engineering did outline some possible funding opportunities. Those could be looked at further to see, is a quiet zone specifically eligible, or what the eligibility requirements would be, and then what's the likelihood of a project being funded, and, we could explore those a little bit more to see what the options might be.
I feel that would be a reasonable approach at this point. Is that something that you would require us to give you direction on, or just?
No, I think we could just add it to we still have it on the referral list, so I don't need any specific direction for that.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else? Mayor Zacher?
Did I understand this is just to keep the trains from blowing their whistles ever, right? Like during the day and night?
That's correct, yes.
And is this something that like is mandatory for the engineers? Like if they know they're in a quiet zone, they cannot blow their whistle, or they could still blow their whistles if they so chose?
Right, it's not mandatory. If they deem it necessary for safety reasons, or, maybe there's something that they visibly see ahead of them, they can still legally blow their horn. And so, but otherwise it would be a quiet zone, a 24-hour quiet zone. And
in the end, there's no, they kind of, my understanding again is they run their own rules for the most part. Like there's no recourse from us if they chose not to, or if they chose to blow their horns, we would have no recourse, correct?
Right, yeah, I mean, we could submit complaints and talk to CN staff, and, the likely response is that it was deemed necessary for safety purposes. But yeah, besides that, there wouldn't be any other recourse.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we'll move on. Item 4, review and consider a preliminary resolution for public work and improvements on 13th Avenue North between West Grand Ave and North Termini, proposed for construction in 2026. Joe?
Thank you. So I did include a draft resolution, which includes permanent street surfacing, sidewalk, concrete driveway approach, curb and gutter, storm sewer, sanitary sewer, water main, and associated service lines, along with the list of 41 parcels that would be adjacent to that road project. And the preliminary resolution primarily gives authorization for the project and then causes notices to be sent to the adjacent property owners of the upcoming improvement project. And then internally for the engineering department, it's kind of a green light that survey work and such can begin, that the city has a resolution in place with an intent to do this project at some point. This particular one is currently proposed in 2026.
Questions, comments for Joe? Hearing none, what are the committee's wishes?
How does this work? We do a motion or?
Sounds like almost a motion to me, Jeff.
I would make a motion, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Penskover to approve the preliminary resolution for public work or public improvements on 13th Avenue North between West Grand Ave and North Termini. I'll second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. All in favor respond with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it, 3-0. Okay, item 5, review and consider a preliminary resolution for public work and improvements on Plover Street between First Street North and Apricot Street, proposed for construction in 2025. Go ahead, Joe.
So again, very similar in nature. There's 23 parcels that are affected by this project, and again, proposed for construction in 2025.
Questions or comments? What are the committee's wishes?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary resolution for improvements on Plover Street between First Street and Apricot Street for construction in 2025.
Okay, we have a motion by Palmquist,
I would second that.
second by Penskover. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. All in favor respond with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it, 3-0. All right, item 6, review and consider a preliminary resolution for public work and improvements on 2nd Street North between Spring Street and Pleasant View Drive, proposed for construction in 2026. Joe?
So this is the last one, I promise, but 55 parcels affected by this one. The only difference here is that sidewalk is excluded from the list of improvements. There's no sidewalk currently along 2nd Street North, and any of the utility improvements and street improvements would be done with the exclusion of a sidewalk on either side or both sides of that street, based on the draft of the preliminary resolution that we have.
Thanks, Joe. Questions or comments? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary resolution for public work improvements on Second Street North between Spring Street and Pleasant View Drive.
I'll second.
Second by Palmquist. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to vote. All in favor respond with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, 3-0. All right, item 7, review and discuss the current 5-year capital improvement plan, 2024 to 2028, approved on August 15th, 2023, as well as development of an updated capital improvement plan for 2025 through 2029. Go ahead, Joe.
All right, so I wanted to just bring this item to the Public Works Committee. We're beginning the process of development of the next 5-year CIP, and so I thought it'd be good to kind of brief the committee on the current CIP was approved last August, and then kind of go through some of the process the basic process that we use to develop an updated CIP. And I included the current version in the packet for your review as well. And then, let's see here. I did have the electronic version that I can show. Oops.
That is on the city website as well, right, Joe?
Yeah, we have it in two places. What's on the screen now is the capital improvement plan dashboard. It's set up solely for the capital improvement plan. It's also repeated in the city's GIS program, City Viewer, which is accessible off the website. And that's a little bit more of just a mapping version of it, whereas this provides a little bit more detail and selectability between fiscal year and types of projects. But with that, I guess a basic definition of what a capital improvement plan is. Within the plan, it provides future capital spending, outlines what the improvement is, the estimated cost of that improvement, and then proposed funding sources for each project or capital expense. The current capital improvement plan is specific to Public Works and includes all of our major road projects and utility projects, as well as major pavement maintenance projects. We are beginning to work with Parks and Building to incorporate their capital expenditures in the next 5-year CIP. And then the process that we've gone through, at least past experience, that nothing formal as far as a policy has been developed, but just past practice, is that the engineering department works with Public Works Department, Waterworks and Land Commission, and Wastewater Department to review their project needs. The needs are determined by a variety of ways, but generally include such things as the age or condition of their asset or piece of infrastructure, a history of failures that they've had, as well as the probability of failure or the consequence of failure, depending on if it's, a large piece of infrastructure that, and maybe it's a large diameter sanitary interceptor pipe that, the consequence of having that piece of infrastructure fail, would increase the priority of having some sort of capital project done to make sure that a failure doesn't occur, the likelihood of failure is significantly reduced. Staff then meet to discuss those priorities and work to develop a set of projects by year that satisfy those priority needs, as well as within the financial limitations. That draft version is reviewed with the mayor and the Public Works Committee, and then any changes to that draft plan is made as they arise, and then eventually, goes to the Common Council. Last year, we did do a tour of the capital projects during a special Public Works meeting, And then that tour preceded the recommendation from the Public Works meeting to the council. Some of the considerations that we take into account when making a new 5-year CIP plan, besides the utility and street needs and priorities, we're also looking at if there's any residential developments that have needs or developing priorities for those. Some things that come to mind are the 3rd Street and 4th Street projects streets between Spring Street and Poplar Street. That's a referral that's currently on our referral list. That's an example of something that we would want to consider in the next update, as well as if there's been some light discussions about a city-led residential development. If that is something that gains traction, that's also, a type of project that we would want to consider in the next 5 years, or inclusion of that in the next update. In addition, utility needs for industrial-type facilities, if they're expanding or new industries moving into town and needs an expansion of existing utilities, that's something that would be incorporated into the plan, as it would be public utilities that would be improved, heading into that parcel. Additionally, community needs such as safety enhancements, traffic signal upgrades, sidewalk installations, opening of a street perhaps, or considering any of the referrals that we've received regarding, improvements or any other concerns that the residents have. And then lastly, just kind of the way the 5-year plan works is we're always, because the design, the survey design, and then ultimately construction happening during the construction year, there's usually such a lead time, and that lead time varies depending on the type of the project, the type of permits that we need for that type of project, and just the complexity and scope of the work that might be involved. Engineering's, beginning preliminary resolution processes at least a year in advance, maybe even sooner than that, so that we can start getting survey and beginning the design process. And so when we start looking at making changes to the very next year, so that the 2025 being the first year of our next 5-year plan, to a large extent, we've already started working on those projects in anticipation of being ready for that construction season. We still go through the budget process for approving funding for each of those projects. So everything that's listed in 2025, as we get to budget time, we'll go through and review, from a department budget standpoint, which projects that are in that 5-year CIP that are advanceable to the 2025 funding through the budget process, and then present that to the mayor and then eventually the common council for hopeful inclusion in the 2025 budget. A couple other things real quick. The current road mileage that we have in the city, which also corresponds roughly with the same amount of utility mileage that we have for water main, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer. We have 150 miles of roadway in the city. And the typical lifespan of the pavement structure is about 50 years. So we have a loose sort of 3-mile per year pavement rehab, pavement replacement schedule. It's kind of our rule of thumb or litmus test on kind of if we're close to keeping up with replacement schedule. And for 2024, we have roughly 2.5 miles that were proposed to be either reconstructed or pavement replacement. And so, we're doing fairly well, a little below the 3-mile per year average, but, that comes and goes. Sometimes we throw in a DOT project that we get funding for, and that helps push us a little bit, advance our replacement schedule a little bit further. And then from a budgetary standpoint, our street construction budget this year is about $1.8 million. The water main, about $500,000. Sanitary, $1.5 million. And then storm sewer right around $1 million. So, you know, we're right at like a $5 million total utility road construction budget for 2024. That does fluctuate from year to year, but since funding comes from the three utilities, water, sanitary, and storm, you know, we try to keep things as consistent as we can. However, some road projects have water main, some don't, some have sanitary, some don't. So there's always some ebbs and flows there, but hopefully I gave a decent summary of the capital improvement plan and kind of the process, and certainly would entertain any questions or comments.
Committee?
Could you give me those budget numbers again that you just listed off for the street and,
Sure.
yeah,
Street construction is at roughly 1.9 million. Water main, $500,000. Sanitary sewer, 1.5 million. And storm sewer at roughly 1 million.
what was the third one?
Sanitary sewer at 1.5.
Okay. And I heard you say something that you did a tour with the previous Public Works Committee around town. Could we arrange something like that, seeing as how we're new and we'd like to be brought up to speed? Is that something we could arrange?
Yeah, certainly.
How would we go about that? We just leave
We'd
it up
have
to you
to,
to pick a
we'd have
date?
to post it as a meeting, because obviously the entire committee
Okay,
would be a quorum. So unless we do it individually, it would have to be a posted meeting, and something we can definitely schedule down the road for sure.
okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Anyone else?
I just have a planning and budget question. So when you prepare with the projects and the budget, do you have, or do we have a reserve set for risks? I see some of these items are relatively old. And I'm interested if we have, at any point in your time with the city, needed to have a reserved spot of funds in case something that was planned for a future year comes up and is urgently needed to be replaced now.
Yeah, I believe Tim DeSorsi, the finance director, he would be able to speak to it much more clearly, but from my experience, there's always reserves available. As far as how much are available in particular areas, I'm not sure of what those numbers are. But built into our cost estimates for each project, we always have a contingency in there dealing with underground utility work. It's not always clear if we run into bedrock or how much bedrock or groundwater. You know, there's things that are unknown through that process that we try to build in and have some buffer at least within the construction season, that year's budget. But in addition, I know that the finance director does make sure that there's reserves available and set aside for emergency type of situations.
Have you ever experienced an emergency situation with storm sewer, wastewater utility, or water utility lines?
Yeah, there's been a fair amount of, not necessarily emergencies, but separate examples. We've had emergency type situations with the traffic signals with one of the controllers being hit. 2 controllers have been hit by vehicles since I've worked for the city. We've had force mains break, we've had water mains break, and those utilities they're well equipped to handle those repairs in a quick fashion. Fortunately, we've never had any issues since I've been here where we've had like a major event where we've discharged a significant amount of water out into the river that I'm aware of. But yeah, all the main breaks are things, you know, within the roadways that have been handled expeditiously.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the capital improvement plan? Okay, hearing none, we'll roll on to item 8, which is review the referral list. So I don't know that there's anything we can necessarily strike here at this point in time. Item 6, actually. I think six has been addressed. That can go. Any additions or comments to the referral list?
Item 7 is addressed in the improvement plan, I believe, right, Joe? Does that stay on the list until after we approve that plan?
It's I guess from a capital improvement plan update standpoint, it's one of those that we'll probably try to incorporate in some form or fashion, at least from a staff level perspective. I guess if anything more formal than that at this time, other than eventual adoption in the capital improvement plan, I don't think is really necessary unless it's something that the committee and would like to see done sooner rather than later. You know, it could be advanced in the CIP or.
I guess one thing for me to speak to, I know you touched on signal issues earlier, but West Grand and the expressway, we're still getting a automatic green arrow for traffic coming off of West Grand
Yeah,
and Jackson there.
that was with the, what was the term that I used? With the video detection processor that failed, that's what controls the detection of the vehicles when they approach the intersection. And so when it's in a failed state, it's automatically putting a call in, just in case there is a vehicle there that it currently can't detect. And so for the time being, those will keep coming up. It's the same sort of issue that's occurring at the expressway in Lincoln Street with left turn arrows.
Yep.
And they keep coming up without vehicles there. And like I said, equipment's on order. It's just a matter of getting here and getting installed, so.
Anyone else? I would recognize Elizabeth. You'd like to come up?
My name is Elizabeth Whalen. I live at 211 15th Avenue North. So one of the things that I've noticed with the new change in the signals where they're going to the yellow flashing is at Riverview Express turning left onto West Grand. It changes. So, I mean, after, you know, when there's a train and everyone's stopped and it's, you know, you've got your long line and that you have time for maybe 2 people to go, and then it goes, you know, to the red, and then to the flashing yellow. And when you've got, you know, multiple semis, you know, that are trying to get through that intersection, having that flashing yellow doesn't usually give them enough time. And it just seems like the traffic is just really backed up because in that particular situation. So I don't know, but I mean, obviously, we have a lot of trains at that, you know, site. So that's something that I've noticed. And, you know, I don't know if there's a way to address that and stuff. Can I make one other comment about the quiet zones? I noticed on the map, on page, I believe it's 10 or 9, you've got the red and the blues, and then there's the green. And it seems like if you were going to focus on that, which, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money, and that the green is really, you know, I kind of live on the west side, I live over on 15th Avenue North, and, you know, we hear the trains. I would think you would want to focus more on the residential areas, and that, you know, the green, the Whitehall subdivision, there's really not a lot of, you know, residential areas over there. That's really right by the, you know, the industrial kind of area and stuff. So, I mean, that's kind of my thought is, you know, I'm just, when you talked about, you know, these are 2022 numbers, and I mean, we hit that, you know, in Parks and Rec where, you know, one year we were looking at lights and they were this amount, and then all of a sudden it's like they're, you know, twice that, if not more, and stuff. So, I mean, if those are 2022 numbers, I just wonder how much money that is now and stuff too. So that's a lot for silence. So anyway, thank you.
All right, anything else on the referrals?
I have one question for Joe.
Go ahead, Dean.
It seems like, I think that the Chase and Expressway, that one seems to be working better now. For a while there on, especially like on weekends, on Saturdays, you could sit at Chase for 10 minutes before it changed to green. Is what, I know at one point you were working on that. Is that still?
Well, so one thing that we have noticed over time, and it somewhat results in a fair number of the complaints that we do follow up on, but so the way the signals are timed, the pedestrian push buttons that are there, that when a pedestrian's present and they push the button, the timings change to accommodate the pedestrian. You know, so for Chase Street traffic, you know, there's maybe a few cars that are going to cross through that time, but if you have a pedestrian that's going to cross with the Chase Street traffic, cross the expressway, they've got quite a distance, 4 lanes plus a median to cross, and so the timing plan that gets activated with the pedestrian increases the amount of green time for, say, Chase Street. And that when the push buttons fail, they fail as if in a closed situation where you know they think there's a pedestrian that's always there, and that throws the timing off for the intersection. It's now timed to accommodate pedestrians. That generates a fair amount of complaints that we find is that the push buttons have failed and it's thrown the timings off. We have done some proactive investigation of various intersections to test them and validate that things are working properly, but then other times we become aware of them based on complaints and follow up to investigate, and then we find that a push button has failed and that gets replaced and the situation's kind of corrected at that time. But yeah, specifically to that issue, that I had heard that things were working better at that intersection for some time now, but I don't recall specifically what that change was or what the issue was that was corrected.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Hearing none, we'll move to item 9, which is set the next meeting date. Our next regularly scheduled date is July 4th, so assuming everyone will want to reschedule. I don't even know if City Hall is open, is it? No. So then our next date would be the 11th. Are the council chambers available on the 11th?
I'll check here real quick. I'm not, I'll have to check on it. Kyle Kearns has council chambers first floor conference room reserved from 2 PM to 8 PM. I'm not sure what he's got scheduled during that time frame. Perhaps he just needs one room or the other.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'll see what either can be shifted around or what's available.
Is the 11th good for the rest of the committee? Okay, so we'll plan for 5 o'clock on the 11th. If there's an issue, we can absolutely work through it. So. All right, item 10, adjournment. You got a motion?
Second?
Got a second? All in favor, respond with aye. Aye.
Aye.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.